This is Marketing Uncomplicated. All right. I have a special guest today. Born in Norway but raised with a unique transatlantic perspective, Ragnhild early life was shaped by a deep connection to exploration in diverse cultures. Thanks to her father's work in the cruise industry, her journey has taken her from studying business and languages to mastering holistic healing practices like yoga, meditation, and Reiki. Through her brand, The New Viking, Ragnhild blends ancient Nordic wisdom with modern transformation techniques. And we'll get into all of these details, but we're going to learn about the story as to how she got here. What began as a TV pilot evolved into immersive retreats and online programs that guide people on a journey of self discovery, whether it's through in person experiences or her travel without moving courses. Ragnhild helps individuals reconnect with their heritage, inner wisdom, and personal growth. She's here today to share her personal experience of overcoming challenges, embracing authenticity, and navigating transformation, which have fueled her mission to create a meaningful impact in the world. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Sasha.
Yes, thank you for joining. So first, I want to say I want you to pronounce your name in the Norwegian way because people are going to see it written, and our name is our namesake. So go ahead. How do we pronounce your name in the Norwegian manner?
Yeah. So in Norwegian, you would pronounce it Ragnhild in
Okay.
the region where I come from. So with a soft R, Ragnhild. But
Ragnhild.
to be honest, I mean, this has kind of been a question that made me cringe all through my life because I grew up in the US and
Yeah.
people would I got a lot of grief for my name. And to be honest, I hated it when I was growing up and I wondered why my parents had done such a thing to me. Um, I've been called everything from Ronald McDonald to
Oh my gosh!
Ron
How?
to, and so, but now I like it, and thanks to this TV series on the History Channel, the Vikings, where the
Yes.
main character is Ragnar, the warlord.
Yes. Yes.
People
The
now say, "Oh
best.
my gosh, it's like Ragnar! That's really
Yeah.
cool." And I'm like, "What? You think it's cool?" So
Yeah.
here, my name, people will say Ragnhild, and then my close friends will call me Rags,
Oh,
which
I love that.
that's kind of like the stage name.
Yeah.
But yeah, from going for something that was a pain when I was a little kid, I learned to be proud of it because it's part of my heritage, and it means battle advisor, actually.
Oh, so that's perfect that it kind of resonates with Ragnar, who was always going into battle, right, in the Vikings,
Yeah.
and that you were maybe his battle advisor.
Yeah. Well, then people will go like, "What does that have to do with meditation?" But I feel like the real battle that we always face is the battle within. So it actually does fit really well.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't mind starting there because I mean, I'm sure everybody on the call, as well as yourself, has obviously heard of the book The Art of War, which is a book that can really support from a business standpoint, right? It was like how did people back in 17 or even before 1700, excuse me, get into war? How did they plan? And what was the success of coming out of measuring? Obviously none of us want to get into war, but it was the whole process of building this, and executing on something to really tackle the end goal, right? So in that sense, let's talk a little bit more about, when people are asking what do Vikings have to do with meditation? Because, when people think about Vikings, they think of us like running through the fields with our swords and like conquering, parts of Scandinavia, which the Norwegians are the true Vikings. So yeah, let's talk about that synergy because I think that it's an interesting one and I think it ties very well with your brand.
Well, yeah, I did do some, let's say, soul searching to figure out if there was a different name I wanted to use. But finally, kind of like with my real name, Ragnhild, the New Viking was a name that came to me 12, 13 years ago now. Just like it was in my head, ding, this is the name you need to use. But it was for a completely different project in the beginning. It was for a TV show pilot that I was working on and produced, and it was trying to raise enough money to actually get it on the small screen, on the TV screens. And then I left that project for a while, and then through a series of events, the more experiential side of the New Viking came up. It was to do retreats and this whole self exploration journey, and that's where I thought really the New Viking I can continue to use this name because I knew it was something I needed to use. But before it was like an outer exploration, always looking at someone else. What is the New Viking today? What does Nordic heritage represent? What is Nordic culture? What's in our DNA, and what's in the creative realm that has to do with our ancestors? And then and how do we see that in modern life? But then it turned into an inner search, and the New Viking seemed to fit even better in a way because it's the journey going within,
Yeah.
which is also facing the unknown, and it can be a really scary journey, and
Yeah.
it's something that everybody goes through. So it really doesn't have to do with the Vikings in the cultural sense so much anymore, but more in the spirit of
Yeah,
exploration.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. The spirit of exploration, because I think there's a lot that we are learning from them and have taken from, where they've come from. So now let's take a step back.
And I want to
Yeah.
add, obviously, it's not about the violence, but
Yes.
it's more about curiosity. And they were very entrepreneurial and adventure oriented. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the curiosity, I think, is one of the most important parts of the brand, so to speak, because I love always learning new things, and anything that is in the realm of the unseen and the unknown, that gets me even more interested.
Yeah, and it's as you're saying, the adventure, like the exploration. And I think as human beings, we're always exploring, what is the next step of, like, how I'm going to grow, what's the inward process, so on and so forth. So I think exploration, adventure, all of that really ties in super well to, the name. I want to talk about the company and dig into that, but I want everyone to hear the story and your journey getting there, because I think it's really an interesting one, having come from the background that you started in. And then, the TV show, which I think is also an interesting one, because people always think they are born with an idea and they just come into market, but there is always a journey that somehow builds up into why somebody is doing what they're doing today.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to start with the beginning, and I'll make it short because there's many chapters.
Yeah.
It's like a Viking saga, right?
Yeah.
It's a trilogy. I was born in Norway, so really in the hometown of the Vikings, which I believe was Bergen, or that was at least a big mainstay of the Vikings. And then I moved to the U.S. as a baby, so made my first transatlantic crossing as a 3-month old. Moved all over the U.S., then to England, back to the U.S., back to the West Coast, and then to Norway again as a teenager. And it was only as an adult that I returned. And meanwhile, I lived in France for a long time. And so I feel like this was also in my DNA, this transatlantic crossing. It must have been something
Yeah.
subconscious that affected me. And then it just so happened that my father worked for a cruise line, which back in the day, in the 80s, it was very much dominated by Nordic, let's say, not only staff, but people working on the actual business side and obviously on the ships. And the cruise line was called Royal Viking Line. So
Okay.
there was also probably some subliminal message that
Yeah.
was coming to me.
Which I think, aren't they still around? Like, they cruise, or is it the
No,
Viking
now it's
cruises are through the fjords?
yeah, now it's
Yeah.
Viking,
Yes,
only
it's just
Viking, and it's one
Viking.
of the
Yeah.
same people who created that cruise line, which is amazing. But
Yeah.
originally it was a different one. Um, and it was sold to NCL or was it RCCL? Don't quote me on that. Now
Yes.
I'm forgetting, but I digress. And also, I had to change. We moved so many times, I had to change uh, dialects. I changed schools. I changed friend groups. I changed homes so many times, and I think that really taught me to adapt and always kind of to fit in and very quickly pick up on. mm, Different cultures, okay, subcultures, granted,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
I think when you move a lot, you have to tune into all the kind of unseen cues and those very
Agree.
subtle
It's an adjustment.
yeah, it's not only about reading about a place and then suddenly fit in. That was kind of my life story for good and for bad, as we say, was trying to always fit in and figure out where I belonged.
Yeah.
And so I was always searching for that place, and in my mind and in my heart, I felt like that place was Norway, because every summer we would go back and we'd go to the ancestral cabin and we'd go to all these places where my family came from, and I really felt rooted in mindset, maybe some of it, but it was more, I think, an imaginary mindset of what it could have been
Yeah.
way back in the day. So it's just always very romanticized and nostalgic in my head.
Yeah.
But definitely this has become part of the brand. Um, and then I ended up studying business and did a European Master of Business, and I moved to France because I'd always been fascinated by France and the whole romantic culture and languages. And I started working for L'Oreal. That was my first big job, and in international marketing branding. So it was essentially coming up with new products, and then the whole concept and the tagline and the advertising and the products, the colors, a whole 9 yards, like from A to Z.
Yeah.
And then and that was fun, and it was in a very different world than right now. Everything is on the inside, and at that time it was all about the outer,
Yeah.
right? The makeup, beauty, glamour, luxury, all that. And it was something I always was very interested in. But I mean, I would not find it as fulfilling to do something like that now, because I feel like under the surface there's so much more to explore.
I completely agree.
And then also it was a very stressful environment, like a top-down pyramid structure, and very very old school. I always like to say it was kind of like working uh, at the devil,
The Devil
working
Wears
for the
Prada.
devil wears Prada. Yeah,
Yeah.
it did feel a little bit like that at times.
Yeah.
And so I quit there when we moved to the U.S. And my husband was working here, also in the cosmetics industry. And I then started a family. So I have 3 kids now that are almost all moved out. But I decided to be a stay-at-home mom, and then I worked on other smaller projects on the side uh, while I was here. Always entrepreneurial, and many failures and many trials and tribulations, and then uh, going through a quite difficult period in my life, I really turned to meditation, which is something I'd been interested in, as well as all other esoteric, if you could say that, and mystical practices since I went to India in 2000. But it became like a really deep search about I want to say 8 9 years ago, and meditation was really the thing that I would say saved me
Hmm.
when I went through Dante, Dante's Inferno, I like
Yeah.
the Dark Night of the Soul.
Yeah.
And so I knew, I actually never thought I would be teaching this. I mean, I was thinking about what's going to be the next business, and I had the TV show idea and all that, which I had put on the back burner. But then after having gone through that, and then doing the meditation teacher training, which I did because I wanted to do some retreats. I wanted to organize some retreats, and I thought, let me get certified in meditation so I can teach others.
Yeah.
But I really had no plans of teaching it just per se. But then what happened was the lockdown, the pandemic, and all my ideas for retreats canceled,
Yeah.
and all the plans that I had started and all other projects canceled. And so I was looking for things to do, trying to find work. And then I was teaching meditation online just for free to help people get through the stress. As I was kind of teaching, calming myself down and helping others
Yeah. How
at the same
wonderful.
time. And I honestly, I didn't even think this retreat thing was ever going to happen. That was always a fantasy of mine, also to be able to bring people to my neck of the woods and show them.
Around. Yeah.
Uh, and any excuse I have to go back to Norway, then
Yeah.
I'll invent any project
Yeah.
to go back.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
I have a question for you before you continue on the aspect of where you were like you found meditation, to support you in a time that was, rough, right?
yeah,
So what do you think really is that tipping point for people, at least when you hear, people coming to your retreats, and what do you think makes a person convert into I need to do this to better myself? Or because there's a lot of people that are going through the dark and they don't necessarily know the tools to get out of the dark, right?
yeah,
So, I think that and I think this is a little bit of like, going into marketing, but it's like understanding who your customer is, because there is going to be the pocket of the ones that are ready to go, and they know that they want this and they need this and it's nourishing for the soul and so on and so forth. But then there are those that are teetering on, do I need this? Is this what I want? Am I going to enjoy it? Am I going to like be there, but internally screaming, I can't handle it? Because whenever I talk to people about meditation, they're like, oh my gosh, like, how do you sit down for X amount of
Mm.
time? Like, I feel like my brain is going at 100 miles an hour. And so there's a variety of different people to kind of, bring in to the funnel, so to speak, in terms of marketing. But it's like, who do you really recognize are those that are, one, ready to convert, or the ones that are like, yeah, this is interesting, I just don't know if I'm ready yet?
Right. So that's is a big question, which
Yeah.
there might be many answers to, which there usually are, right? There's not only one answer to a question.
Yep.
First of all, when you say convert, it makes me think religion. I just want to
Yeah.
add that meditation can be spiritual, but it is not religion. It's not the same thing as praying. So just so that's said,
Yes, thank you for
there's a
that.
friend of mine who's a life coach. He always says that meditation is like telephoning to God or the universe, whatever you want to call it. Oh no, sorry, is the universe calling you, and
Yeah.
then prayer would be calling the universe slash
Yeah.
God. It's like tuning. I like to think of it. I explained to someone who never has done it before. It's like the old fashioned TV sets with the antennas, and you remember. Some people might not remember this,
Yeah.
but when you would get that
The
signal with the
waves.
with the rainbow bars, or yeah, like the
Yeah.
right. It's about tuning your instrument and finding the channel so that you can receive a clear picture,
Mm-hmm.
and that clear
Mm-hmm.
picture is inside of you. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be something really scary. I mean, sometimes if we're suppressing some memories or some experience or some emotional trauma, let's say, it can be uncomfortable for a while. But then it's about, I think, just looking at it with curiosity and being very gentle with yourself and just using it, starting out very small, like put a timer every day for 5 minutes and just sit quietly and breathe. Because the minute you can shift your focus off your mind by using the breath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
by listening to a sound outside of yourself, let's say air conditioning or some white noise, then you're able to kind of switch off the thinking brain just a little bit. And then you
Yeah.
just do it. It's a practice. So it's like brushing your teeth or doing a stretch or exercise, right?
Yeah.
If you say I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible, well then you're never going to get flexible. So if you can't do meditation because you're thinking too much, then obviously meditation is kind of what you need, right? Because that's what the practice is to gently rein in your mind so that you can get more focus and clarity and tune in.
Yeah.
And so it can be something really fun once you get past the fear of going into yourself. It can be really fun and very interesting. You don't need TV
Totally.
anymore because it's
Yeah.
all
Yeah. I love that. It's like when you and I were talking about the all the meditation folks that are out there, and the one that I had mentioned to you, Sadhguru, how he talks about his practice being inner engineering.
right.
So
That's
you
right.
you really do bring that up, and thank you for that, because yes, it's not a religion, so nobody converts. So thanks for that correction. And it's just, maybe it's like, how are they feeling that they are being called to this, or guided in a way to, maybe make the change, or realize that their life can be better,
Mhm.
versus the position that they're in currently right now.
Exactly. And you can use it for so many reasons, basically for everything too. I would say, I mean, I hesitate to use the word improve because we're not talking about a medication here. We're talking about uh in I don't even like to call it esoteric anymore. It's
Yeah,
really, it should be something that we learn, I think, in schools, because when you learn to
it's a
harness
tool.
the power of your mind, basically that's what it is. Even just a little bit, it can help you improve your sleep. It improves relationships just because you feel better. It helps you
Concentration.
to process emotions. It helps you to control your appetite. It gives you more energy. There's endless benefits, both physical, emotional, and mental, of doing meditation. So
Yeah.
you can use it purely like that, like a tool. And then when you start doing it and you see like how much kind of bubbles to the surface, and even people, experience kind of more telepathy and intuition, like stuff that's Einstein called spooky things at a distance. Like there's all the things that you read about, it all kind of starts to happen, and it's just very fascinating. It's like a volcano that's under there that
Yeah. You
all
almost
starts to
become
bubble.
more connected to
Yeah,
everything that's
100%.
happening around you. It's that feeling and that sensation of, oh, did I just imagine that, or was that an accurate feeling, you know? And
Yeah,
your gut really becomes your guide in a way. Like, it's this whole thing of like trust your gut, and like you tune inwards to react
correct.
outwards, right? I mean, would you say that that's a good way of putting it?
Yeah. Instead of being reactive to everything that's happening outside, you're tuning into
Yeah.
uh, your own inner guidance, and hearing your own voice. And
Yeah.
often, I would say probably all of us, unless you grew up in a vacuum, which almost doesn't exist, we all are programmed, just like computers or TVs, with beliefs and ideas and shoulds and shouldn'ts that we have inherited from people around us, whether it's our parents or our families, friends, schools, and cultures, subcultures. And this can take a long time to, let's say, reprogram and to recognize. But when you do start meditating, you start to recognize like whose voice is speaking to you, right? Whose mind is
Mm-hmm.
it anyway?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As I was jokingly saying the other day. Um, because sometimes your own voice can get suppressed by all the noise outside, and certainly today with like you're being bombarded not only by TV channels but like a million different podcasts and
You're
videos
you're you're
yeah,
carrying
on
it
the
with you.
phone.
Yeah.
I can't even look, honestly, me, if I look at Instagram, then I got 500 animal videos, and then I start scrolling and I can't
Yeah. It's a deep
it's
hold.
it's hard, yeah. And so yeah, that's also, meditation is a great tool to overcome any kind of addiction, and information addiction is certainly a big one in
It's a
our
thing.
times. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it can be as little or as much as you want. So it's so hard to say in a few words what it is, because it leads to so many other things.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I like to say it's a journey of self-discovery. And if you just want to try a little bit, you can do an online class, or or you can just do online meditations that you find on YouTube or on different apps. And
Yeah.
then if you're really interested, you can go on a retreat. But when I do the retreats, it's not all about meditation. It's the retreats are kind of like the inner discovery, but also the outer journey. So it's connecting with other people from all over the
Yes.
world,
Yes.
and
Yes.
then enjoying nature and doing all kinds of other activities. Most of them centered around wellness and then food and culture, but it's not a very strict, let's say, it's not like a retreat going to an ashram or anything like that. Very far from that.
Yes. So it's more fluid in that sense.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just tourism with extra benefits.
Yeah. Tourism with a come down from the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So just to take a little bit of a step back into the TV show that you were creating, that I think, I would you say was a little bit of the tipping point into building out the retreats, and really creating the new Viking.
Well, yes, definitely. I knew I was onto something because I couldn't get rid of that name in my head, and the idea, but I knew it wasn't quite there, uh, because it was always like looking for who is the new Viking, searching for the new Viking, and then I'm like, why am I searching for this? And it was a search for something, which I think was the connection to, right, the in my case, the ancestors, and like whatever heritage from my part of the world that could be something shared with others, and I would be kind of like the channel for that. And then I didn't manage to raise enough money, so for a while I thought, okay, well, whatever, it's not going to happen. And I used the new Viking as my brand for doing some consulting for some of the people I'd worked for before on various projects, loosely related to marketing and for trend forecasting and this kind of thing that I'd already done for L'Oreal when I worked for them. And it was really when another life coach here in Florida that knew, she asked me if I would do a retreat with her in Iceland, because I was like the Viking counterpart, and she wanted to make it more authentic, and she knew that I was relatively obsessed with the Vikings. So
Yeah.
she said, "Okay, come with me, and you'll do one part of the retreat, and I'm doing my life coaching part."
Yeah.
And then and that's actually what got me to, was the tipping point to do the meditation teacher training, because I wanted to get the certification, even though I'd done it for a long time, so that I could say, okay, I'm teaching meditation and the whole Nordic part. But then it all got canceled because of COVID, and
Mm-hmm.
that led to the online teachings. And then finally the first retreat happened in 2023, when I met an astrologer who wanted to do a retreat with me in Norway. He had never been, so
Yeah.
uh, we did that, and it just kind of clicked. The timing was right, because people were
Yeah.
ready to get out of confinement.
Yes. Just break free.
Yeah, break free.
Yeah.
And I think more now, I mean, retreats have existed for a while, but more and more people want to travel and then learn something else, not just go on a trip to a beach or a big city. I mean, those things are great too, but I think going to places like Norway or Iceland, going with a local makes it a different experience. And then if you can learn other things in addition to
Mm-hmm.
that, it's
Mm-hmm.
great. And I'll also bring in local experts on different subjects, so you can learn more things.
Yeah, I love the uniqueness of how you're connecting your heritage to the actual retreats that are happening in Norway, because if anybody has ever been to Norway or has seen pictures of Norway, the hiking experience is an experience and and can be a meditative experience in and of itself, right?
Oh
Or
yeah.
if you're down by the fjords or the or close to the water or any of that sense, I mean, it's like your whole day could be a meditative walk versus just sitting and doing the meditation and the practice itself. So it's like, I let's talk more about that full kind of 360-degree connection, which I think a lot of retreats try to encapsulate, but they don't necessarily get, because it's, oh, we're just going to go to this beautiful destination that I don't have a heritage connection to, but it's beautiful, we're connected to the ground and so on and so forth, but you're kind of encapsulated and spending a majority of the time in the hotel versus going out and connecting to that culture and the nature, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very natural to do that in a place like Norway, because nature is such a big part of people's lives. You're partly from Sweden, so
Hmm.
in Norway, it's like that on a Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Everybody leaves because they're all going to the mountains or the cabin or the
Yeah.
seaside or something. And I grew up only partly in Norway, but going to the mountain was like a thing. We're going to the mountains, we're going to the mountains, or on a Sunday, we're going for a walk, and a walk would be 3, 4 hours. You got to get out, because that's ingrained in the culture, is that being in nature is something that calms you down. Nobody was meditating back then; it wasn't even a thing. But
Yeah.
I think going into nature is that same thing, because you get into that zone, right? Just like when you're in artistic or creative flow, it's that same feeling of kind of losing yourself.
Hmm.
And when you get deep in meditation, that's exactly what happens. So definitely we did some hiking, but um, to adapt hiking to very many different levels, I realized on the first one, because what some people call hiking is not is not hiking over there,
Yeah.
and vice
Yeah.
versa. But
Yeah.
that's why it's very free. So I'll organize activities that if you want to go on a big hike, you come on a big hike. If you want to go on a small walk, you can go with someone else on a smaller walk. And yeah, we adapted like that. But definitely getting close to nature, and even grounding, going swimming in the cold water, sitting in a wooden sauna,
Hmm.
um, just smelling the trees and sitting on a mountaintop, that's all part of the experience.
Yeah.
And this year we're going to be going to the fjords. So
Yes, yes. Lovely. So, but your experiences and your meditation retreats aren't just what you offer. So there are the courses that you also have online that can be taken outside. So tell us a little more about that.
yeah, so did a couple of courses this year. one with
And
it.
what made you really build out those courses? Because a lot of people, when they start off building retreats, it's just like, oh, we're just gonna focus on this and build retreats. But I like this extension, which could, and you'll tell us, but maybe it's like an extension post retreat or pre retreat, and what do the courses really like entail?
Well, you could look at it like that, but they weren't connected directly to the retreats. But I realized that it wasn't possible for me to travel all the time, and it's a lot of work to do those big trips for a very short time period. So I wanted to have something that I could do in between that could also help people who didn't have the budget or the time to go on a big trip of 8 days overseas. And that's how I had the first idea, and I did the first course. I called it Travel Without Moving. And it was about the chakra system and how that connects to meditation and astrology with George Lewis, who's a well-known astrologer. And that worked really great. And so I did another one with a healer. So it's been in collaboration with other people, Katie Bishop. And I did, it was all about the Hermetic journey, the ancient
Hmm.
principles of the Hermetics and how you can really use those. So it's all about mindset and mastery of what's going on inside of you.
Yeah,
Like be the change you want to see in the world. That sounds very highfalutin, but that's what it's all about. I mean, in one way or another, there's many different tools, but they all kind of lead back to the same thing.
yeah.
That everything is in here. And then I'm probably gonna be doing one on my own now in a couple of weeks, which will just be very quiet meditation for the wintering
Hmm.
period as we close the winter and
Yeah,
prepare for spring.
yeah.
So you could say it would be more of a basic course coming up.
So more like an intro course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but even if your experience doesn't really matter, that's the thing. It's like there's always. I often like to take beginners classes, even for subjects that I know quite a bit about already, because I love
Refresh
to.
and remind.
Yeah, and I think that's a quote of the Buddha, if there even is a quote from the Buddha, by like go towards everything as if your mind is an empty cup, right?
Yeah,
It's like
I
because
love
there's
that.
always, if you think already you know what the answer is, then you won't be able to see a new perspective, right? And
Yeah,
we all have a little bit of a unique facet to contribute.
yeah, yeah. What do you think has been your biggest challenges in the journey of getting to the new Viking?
Right. I can write a long. How much time do you have?
I just opened up a huge can. I mean, within developing businesses, there's always like, this was great and we managed this and we built it and this was our fabulous journey, but there's always speed bumps, there's road bumps,
Oh
there's
yeah,
things to accomplish, things to move forward. And that's where I love the phrase, just keep going. And it's like, and it seems so cliche, but I think, and so many people have come out. I mean, it's most recently, I think, I love a lot of what comes out of some of the football players, and I don't necessarily watch American football, but Tom Brady has a lot of like good snippets of like things that he said at speeches, and
yeah.
I think it's like the one thing that he said was, it's not about you having the like being great at what you do, but it's because he wasn't the best of the best, but he was consistent in his training and his learning and getting to the point of becoming the best of the best, but he didn't start out that way. Yes, there are a lot of people that are gifted with a skill set to make them the best of the best.
Mm,
Maybe by default their personality or something that happens can kind of shift and move them off of that track, but I
yeah,
think consistency and keep going and have that perseverance is really what's so important.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I could tell you so many stories, and some people like that have known me for a long time, like I'll say, "So what are you doing?" And then I'm like, mumble, 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 the new Viking, da da da.
Yeah.
They're like, "You're still doing that?" And I always have this image of myself alone in a Viking ship, like rowing and rowing and
In
rowing
the
and rowing.
craziest of like winter storms.
Yeah. And one wave after another, and I just keep on rowing. And many times, I mean, for a long time, to make any money, and
Yeah.
one failure after another.
It's funny that you have that image because did you remember the shows where it was like these obstacles? And I think it came out of like China where it's like they would go on these obstacles and like a big ball would come and try and
Oh
knock
yeah,
them out of like I forget what it was, right? And it's like sometimes I feel like entrepreneurship is that way. It's like,
yeah,
okay, you're gonna get knocked down, but it's like how do you get back up to get back into the obstacle? Because it is an
yeah.
obstacle.
And then at times you ask yourself like, why am I
Why am I
doing this?
doing
Why
this?
don't I just go get a normal job? But like, apparently, I read this once about writers, and they were asked like, why do you write? And it's like you become a writer when you really just can't do anything else, you know. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think with entrepreneurs, it's a little bit the same, you know. It's just I won't give up, you know. It's like I won't let go of that piece of meat.
Hmm.
And no, the biggest, I guess the expected answer is fear of failure or whatever. But no, I'm not afraid of failure because I've already failed, I guess, many times. But there is no failure because life is a movie. It's not a still shot, right? So
Yeah.
it's just like something happens and then you make a new choice. Like, do I keep on going or do I change it? What do I do? And then it's like perpetually you're just learning and learning. Because when
Yeah.
things are going well, you're probably not learning a lot. But when things get painful, then you pay attention.
Yeah.
And, and I think some of the biggest challenges, apart from, let's say, a more logistical and technical issue, which is going from a multinational to a multitasker, where you have to do everything yourself, and there's
Yeah.
no technical department. Just like when we're going to start now, I have no idea how to log into the link because it didn't work this time. Um, Figuring out all the stuff from how to register a company to, I mean, stupid things like that, to creating your own website, to finding the right people will help you for, not too much money, and bartering. And there's like endless new things to learn, right?
Yeah.
Um, but apart from that, I think the hardest thing is to stick to your vision and not lose the belief and in yourself and perseverance. And then also, I'm doing a quote unquote weird thing. Like, I was trained to do business school, and everybody thought I was going to go into banking, and then I went to L'Oreal, and that's like a brand name and like a prestigious job. And now I'm just like sitting at home and doing this weird Viking thing and meditating. And so, I was laughing the other day with my
Yeah.
friend George, who's the astrologer and sound healer, and we were doing a group, and he was running around barefoot doing the bowls, right, hitting the,
Mm-hmm.
and I was leading a
Temples.
meditation. And I just, for a minute, a split second, I thought to myself, if they could only see me now, like in the business suit and all that. And then now I'm like sitting barefoot on the floor teaching meditation, and it just
Yeah.
seemed so comical almost. But I know, I know that it's the right thing to do, and I know how incredibly powerful it is, and it really is keeping the confidence when you're doing something that's so unconventional and
Mm-hmm.
so um, invisible, right? There's no, it's not a like a status job or
Yeah.
anything that's it's not like a sure thing.
Yeah.
But then again, nothing in life is a sure thing, is it?
No, no. I love that. It's almost like I got a few things out of that. It's kind of stepping outside of your comfort zone and doing the unconventional. And it's even if you feel like it is weird, keep going because you're going to have somebody that's going to like what you're doing.
Mm.
And the concept of you can change because being in a suit and being in a corporate job doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have this other side to you. So
Oh yeah, 100%.
even those that are listening that are like, I'm in a corporate, is this for me? Because it is a very stiff environment compared to anywhere else. I mean, even moving from one enterprise and going into a startup, even if you're working in a tech startup or a fintech startup, whatever it is, it's a lot less stuffy than working in an enterprise company.
For sure. But I always believed in, let's say, cross fertilization. And when I was working at L'Oreal, I was in this kind of like think tank or whatever. We had this little cell of young people who were in the new on all the new brands and new projects, and we would come up with new ideas for other brands. We were always like just coming up with new ideas and exchanging, and then doing presentations on all this, just to change the perspective, right? And come up with completely new perspectives. And I think that any company would be smart to do things like that and lead creativity groups and little think tanks, and meditation can be a really amazing tool for that.
Yep.
In fact, there was a professor at Stanford University, I'm forgetting his name right now, but who did a whole a course at Stanford that was about creativity and business and how to foster that. And yoga and meditation are a huge part of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's while it was here for such a long period of time, and I think the boom of most of it was like in the 70s, and then it just kept sort of growing. I think that maybe there was a quiet period in the 90s, but now it's kind of coming back, and I think maybe COVID attributed to that, because I think people were left idle with nothing but their thoughts and maybe
Mm,
their families, where you know a lot of thinking was happening. Which direction do I go? Is this my life? And so on. So I think a lot of questions were being raised around that time, which
yeah.
was an interesting time for the world. And I think an interesting time from a personal standpoint.
Yeah, and for those who are maybe already on the path or just like starting to get curious about things, a huge amount of subjects and perspectives became available online.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, and then people had the time and maybe the inkling to go and check it out for the
Yeah.
first time. So definitely was a portal to people learning more about all these subjects that are not really considered weird anymore. I mean, I never considered any of it
Same,
weird, but
same.
yeah. And then I think another challenge, if you want to go back to the would have been the biggest
Hmm.
obstacles or challenges, is like you said, it's just like keep on going, like no matter what,
Yeah.
like no, keep that flame burning.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if I love that, because it's like, even if you're in the storms or you're walking in a forest and it's like the wind is crazy, it's like, what are you doing to keep that flame going? And that really is a good tie into like life, like there are always going to be things that come up. And, it's something that you believe in doing, then you're going to keep doing it and it's going to continue to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yes, I do believe that. And then there's days where, and that's it's so linked, it's so intertwined with your personal life, right? That and nobody's telling you what to do or on what schedule, and so it's like keeping also a little bit of a routine, um, and inventing certain things that you need to do just helps you keep on going, even if you don't have to do it. I don't know if I'm explaining that really well, but like there's just it's part of just
Trucking.
keep on trucking, keep on, or as what was it, Dory who said in Nemo? I don't know if you see that movie.
Yeah.
Keep on swimming, just keep on
Yeah.
swimming,
Keep on
swimming, swimming,
swimming.
swimming.
Dory and Nemo. Yeah.
And then some days when you really feel like, okay, I got nothing to give, then you can take a break, and it does it. Even if you feel like, oh no, but I need to do all this stuff, I'm behind on everything. Then sometimes you just need to take a break because you need to refill the cup.
You do need to refill the cup.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Well, this has been so informative. Tell us where everybody can find the new Viking, and how, folks can get in touch, find your courses, find the up and coming beautiful trip to Norway.
And you can find it on www.thenewviking.io for Indian Ocean. And then you can also, on Instagram, not very active, but it's at the New Viking, so that's easy. And then I will shortly,
But you are active in your newsletter.
but I am active in the newsletter, and that's become a thing. And I'm going to be moving to Substack, so I will be on this Substack as the New Viking also.
Yes, so we'll
And you can
link your
sign up for,
newsletter
yeah,
as well.
yeah. And the newsletter is little stories, and then there'll also be the link so you can come in and learn more about meditation if you so desire, and come on a retreat.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
So I do have one last question that I ask everybody before we hang up.
yeah.
What is three pieces of advice for an entrepreneur starting out, or somebody that is, currently in business and finding their own obstacle?
Um, I would want to say that meditation is a great tool. Like use a little bit to check in with yourself, to really have that deep feeling of knowing that you want to do this, even though it, doing a pros and cons list, the the cons
Yeah.
might come out longer. use meditation as a tool to check in with yourself. Like all the things I learned by doing and by failing, you could maybe do that ahead of time. And then, yeah, just it all comes back to that. I don't know if there's three things, but getting to know yourself really well.
Yeah.
And then all the technical part you can always find out, but definitely I always sought out tips from the experts, and I never hesitated to like call people up and ask, because I think if you're afraid to ask in life, you're not going to get a yes, but a no sometimes just means no. It doesn't mean you suck. It doesn't mean this is terrible. It doesn't mean don't try again. It just means no right now. So just
Mm-hmm.
like ask people for advice, and most people uh, are very willing to help someone out who's starting out.
Mm-hmm. Or the no could be a pivot into something that you didn't necessarily think of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I got no from my first job was actually in banking, and after the traineeship, 3 months in, I got a no, and I was really disappointed and kind of like it was a blow. And then I thought that's because I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Yeah. 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 It's like trust the flow, trust the process.
Yeah,
Yeah. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. We truly appreciate it and hope to have you back on again.
I would love to. Thank you so much, Sasha.
Alrighty.
Okay.